Can you explain the manosphere and the varying levels of like red pill, black pill, PUAs, like all of that? Because I think that's where a lot of the confusion lies.
Well, okay, so I get this quite often. Like people will ask me, like, Rollo, what's the red pill? And I'm like, how much time do you have? Because anytime somebody like uninitiated or sort of one of these normie outsider kind of people, when they're asking me that, if it's a mainstream source, like we're going to do this interview, probably against my better judgment, this interview thing with CBS.
Yeah.
If they were to ask me like, what's the red pill? They're expecting a bumper sticker. They're expecting somebody to give you some really quick hit, elevator pitch.
Yep.
And the problem with that is that what's become the manosphere, and really what the red pill is there's so many sort of subfields to it right now that it's like it's a college major. It's not a bumper sticker. And I think everybody wants to turn it into a belief set, or they want to turn it into ideology, or a movement, or a philosophy, or a system of belief is basically what they want it to be, because they don't know how to fight it in any other way, because it's just one belief versus another. And if they can turn it into that, then that's what it's going to be. But the red pill, in my experience from doing this for 23 years, is the praxiology of intersexual dynamics. And what I mean by praxiology is, if you look up the definition of praxiology, it is the science or the study of human behavior, in that human behavior has a purpose and a function. It's very pragmatic, right? And that's all it really is it's just a database. It's just, here's the information, raw, you take it as you interpret it however you want. So if I'm using stats, or if I'm using, I'll pull stuff from evolutionary psychology, I'll pull stuff from anthropology, I'll pull stuff like, there was just I think it was in Aporia or something like that, they were talking about the myth of the female hunter. And, like back in our hunter-gatherer days, women hunted much as men did. No, that's bullshit.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Yeah, and so they did this whole study on whether or not, ancient cultures and ancient hominids, females would actually go hunting. Well, they would hunt small game. They would trap like birds and fish and stuff like that, and they want to say that was hunting. Well, the rest of the guys go out and run down woolly mammoths and caribou and stuff like that. So that part of the red pill is anthropology, right?
Yeah.
Or we could use sociology as part of that. We can use economics. Like my good friend Aaron Clary is an actuary. He's done a book called A World Without Men. And what he did is he broke down in numbers what would happen if men just basically dropped out of, they disappeared for 1 week on planet Earth, and the impact that would have on the economy, because there'd be nobody to work oil rigs, there'd be nobody to to fill potholes and to keep the lights on and that kind of stuff. And so that's an economic side of the red pill. That's all part of the praxiology of the red pill. So I wrote a book on religion, and religion was based on the confluence of intersexual dynamics and our beliefs, our belief set. So now I can incorporate that into the red pill. There's so much that goes into intersexual dynamics, and I don't think enough people really realize the impact of the relation between men and women, and how it has effects, like cascade effects, across other things that we wouldn't necessarily say are part of the sexual marketplace. And so that's also part of the praxiology.
Give us some sound bites there.
For
the cascade that we wouldn't assume.
Well, when this is really good. I have a essay, and it's not in any of my books.
You have an essay for every single thing we talk about.
Everything.
I'll just be like, guess what just happened to me, or I just went through this, and he'll send me a post for it, immediately.
I used to do that all the time, and people go, "You just want to drive traffic to your blog." I'm like, dude, do you know who I am? I don't need your traffic, really. Your one click is not going to make or break me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just easier to send this to you.
Yeah.
No, I wrote this essay called "The First Female President." Okay, and it was when it was in 2016 when it was Trump versus Hillary. Right now, I don't talk about politics, and I don't talk about religion, and I don't talk about race, and I don't talk about ethno-nationalism. I don't talk about Zionism or any of that kind of crap. But if it crosses over into sexual dynamics, then it's fair game. So if it's politics, and I'm talking about the ultra-feminist, liberal, if you were to think of one figure who would embody sort of militant feminism, That'd be Hillary Clinton, right? She's this empowered, she's the wife of Bill Clinton, right? And if you know anything about them, how they came up through the 70s and Gloria Steinem and Betty Friedan and all this other stuff, you would probably say she is probably the embodiment of feminism. Well, who could possibly defeat her in a bid for the presidency? It would have to be the guy who is the most hyper-masculine, most misogynistic, chauvinistic, most super hyper-masculine guy you could possibly think of. Who could possibly defeat the living embodiment, the effigy of feminism? Donald Trump.
Yeah. Okay.
So you have it's like two kaijus fighting each other. It's Godzilla versus, Mothra or something like that. And they're just, one's feminism and one's masculinity, right? It's like super hyper over masculinized stuff. And there was such at the time, there was such this overwhelming atmosphere, this understanding that there's no way that Hillary Clinton could possibly lose. Yeah. To Donald Trump. It was beyond the pale. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at like the magazine covers at the time that were saying, welcome, Madam President, like it was on the cover of the time. They had everything set up because they were so like mainstream media, commercial television, even like shows like what was it, House of Cards at that time, where you got Claire Underwood and she's like, she was going to become the president. They changed the plot of the show to reflect a female president in office. If you look at the Super Bowl commercials of 2016, they were all really hyper feminist commercials because they had already done. When you do a Super Bowl commercial, they're shooting those 6 months in advance. Yeah, 6 months prior to the Super Bowl, they presumed that Hillary Clinton was going to be the president, right? Yeah. And so the essay that I wrote was just how overconfident everybody was that Hillary was going to win, and Trump took it away from her. And so what's the social impact of all that happening? Now, that to me is part of the red pill. Okay. So I'm analyzing a socio-political phenomenon that happened during that time, and I'm explaining it in terms of female nature and male nature, and why it was just such a stinging defeat, not just for the Democrats, but for anybody who buys into feminism and is like, was just so overconfident that Hillary was going to win. And it wasn't an overconfidence in Hillary, it was an overconfidence in feminism and female empowerment at that time. So I'm writing all about this stuff, and I've got to tap into politics, I have to tap into society, I have to tap into like social psychology for something like that, which all comes down again to male nature and female nature. So it's sort of broadens the scope of the red pill. Now, today, everybody thinks the red pill begins and ends with Andrew Tate, or they think it begins and ends with Pearl Davis. Yeah. And they think it happened, it just started up half an hour ago, when in fact it's been going on for 20, 25 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, how I even first heard about you in the first place, I told you it was my old roommate from 1,000 years ago, who's still a very close friend of mine, probably some of the man I respect the most in my life. He's an incredible person. He's been an incredible partner. I've seen him in all stages of life. And he was like, you should check him out. And I was like, no, red pill, like Andrew Tate, like, fuck those guys. Fuck those guys. And I'm like,
women are property.
Yeah. Well, and even just you explaining to me, like, I know that feminism is ideological and a social movement, right? But I was like, oh, there's actually a lot of synergies between feminism and red pill. You're like, no, they're different things. Because people try to moralize the red pill, and that we can't.
That's because that's a practice. Yeah. So when I talk about the praxiology of the red pill, it's like the red pill is like fire. Okay, you can warm your house with it. You can cook your food with it, or you can burn your house down with it. You can burn yourself up, or you can burn your friends up with it too. It's all in the usage of what you're doing. That's the practice. Yeah. The fire is the praxiology. It's not good, it's not bad, it's all in how it's used, right? Yeah. So the problem that most people have, especially today in the social media age, is you can't tell people facts without telling them how to feel about those things. Because if you don't, they will hate you for it. Yeah. Or else they will infer the reason why you're telling them these facts is because you want them to believe something. So what they do is, rather than try to combat the facts or like have some sort of like rational discourse about the facts that you're presenting, they have to turn the facts that are inconvenient to what they believe in, and they have to turn the red pill into a belief set. So they have to say, well, the red pill philosophy. No. I will stop anyone in the tracks when they say, like Pierce Morgan will say, well, what about the red pill movement? I'm like, red pill's not a movement.
Yeah.
Red pill is just facts and figures and data and statistics, and it's just the study of human behavior in that human behavior has a function to it, like a latent function to it. Yeah. Now, the practice, like we were talking before, if you talk about the black pill, if you talk about MGTOWs, if you talk men going their own way, MRAs, men's rights activists, the white pill, or, the Christ pill, the trad pill, the gold pill, the
pink pill,
the fuck your mother pill, I don't know, whatever it is, like everything's got to be a goddamn pill, right?
Yeah.
And so what those are practices. We've taken this data, now what are we going to do with it? Well, if you're a MGTOW, you're going to say, you know what, fuck it, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, I'm out. I'm taking this data and I'm turning it into this, for me and for what I think is the best practice. It's just to go your own way and exit the game, right? If you're a black pill doomer, you're just like, oh, it's all about, commiseration with my friends. We're all incels or whatever. Yeah. It's never going to work for us, but we're going to sit here and complain about it all day long. Yeah. Or looks maxers. It's all about how you look. I'm like, how come you're not a personal trainer? Like, what's the resolution? How are you going to solve your problems? Like, oh, well, it's not going to help my face. I'm like, yeah, but you can still get jacked, right? But I love looks maxers. But then there's like the passport bros, right?
What's that?
The passport bros are guys who say, you know what, it's all Western women, and we need to leave the country and go find women in like underdeveloped countries like the Philippines.
My ex-boyfriend, he like ran by. He's like, what do you think about me dating like an 18-year-old Argentinian
Filipino
woman?
Girl from the whole
he's
country?
Like, they're just different there. I'm like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but I also know why you're in. He used to have an older woman thing because he slept with his former stepmother, after his dad passed. It was a really actually tragic, traumatizing kind of fucked up story. And so he would eroticize older women for the longest time. And he's extremely avoidant. So then he went to the other side of the spectrum because he never has dealt with his shit. So it's like, I'm like, you're attracted to this 18-year-old, obviously, aside from the obvious, because it's like you'll never be seen, you'll never be an equal, or not that you want to be an equal per se, but it's like you don't have to do the work there. You're going the pendulum swinging from one extreme to the other. Yeah. Like I was like, you're not gonna, he's like, you're not weirded out by that. I'm like, I'm not offended. I'm just like, he's like, that makes a lot of sense. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, guys will eroticize, or they'll develop preferences or fetishes, whatever you want to call it, for whatever is the easiest, the easiest path from point A to point B.
What do you mean?
Well, if guys say, well, I like a girl with a little bit more meat on her bones, right? It's like fat chicks try harder. You start developing sort of fetishes or preferences for like older women, for example. Yeah. Because it's easier to get for a young guy to get with an older chick who's the cougar dynamic that. It's easier for guys to get with those girls. And then so what happens is they go, you know what? I have a preference for older women, right? No, you don't. It was just easier for you to get laid because of that. And now you've created a neural pathway that sort of helps you with your game with those girls because you know what they're looking for, and you go and sort of cater your own sort of personal interactions with what has worked in the past. It's like going to the same watering hole all the time. Right. It's like, okay, I'm just going to keep going here. Yeah. Whereas you didn't start that way, right? But you ended that way because you ended up, getting with a cougar. You ended up getting with a fat girl, or it doesn't have to be that. It could be like a girl who's really skinny. It could be a girl who's with blonde hair, brunette, redheads, whatever it is. Yeah. So then the fetishes sort of come out of that.